Namaste, everyone. It is me, Nina Sachs from Yoga Awakening Africa. I am super excited to be here with my awesome friend. Actually, you're on that side. Nicole Angelika Panzer. How are you, Nicole?
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super well. Yeah, everything
So
is...
you're from pretty much love-me.com. So if anyone kind of like wants to already check you out, that's where they can find you, www.lov-me.com. Correct?
Super, thank you.
Anyway, so I thought we would have a little bit of a chat about kind of like your yoga journey, where you're at, because you've got a super exciting story with kind of like your whole process, you know, from yoga into alternative health, into moving to Austria where you're now, and kind of like all the challenges, the ups and downs and the fun times that have come in between. So do you remember how we met? Because we must have met years ago.
I think it was at one of Anne's yoga workshops.
Was it pregnancy yoga?
Exactly. I was just about to say
Pregnancy
that
yoga
pregnancy
training.
teacher training. Yes. I think that's when it was. That's when I'd heard of you and I'd heard of your work, and I think you were already working on the magazine then. But we really met at Anne's at the yoga teacher training for pregnancy, pre and postnatal. And then we did a couple of yoga therapy modules with her, I believe. But then I think we just clicked, and we ended up already then. I think you also offered a fair near where
You
your
did a
studio
kids
was in
yoga
town
because you were
center.
doing kids yoga.
Yes, and remember I was doing the kiddies yoga to begin with.
Love it, because Isabella,
Exactly.
your big teenager now, was not a big teenager.
Yes,
It was a
yes. So
little
she
one.
was like 4 or 5 when I started.
And she's now
Exactly.
17, just to give everyone perspective
And
with
she's
kind
now
of like how
17,
long
turning
we've been
18.
friends.
I know, it's crazy how time flies. I mean, I still look the same, don't I?
I haven't changed, honey.
That's when we know things are moving along, is when we see our kids grow up. But yeah, it was a really interesting journey because I really did start with kiddies yoga. You know, I realized that I had the wildest imagination when I was a kid. I mean, I was really into like the role playing of like My Little Ponies, and and I just found that the kids, their imagination was kind of like a little bit missing. And I just felt that for me, it was such a healthy escapism, to really stay connected with my inner child, and you know, and thereby kind of stay out of that whole kind of stress that some kids go through, you know. So that's kind of where my journey started with the whole yoga. And then, of course, kids grow, and then you realize, wow, well, if I'm going to do kiddies yoga, at some point, these kiddies that are doing yoga with me are going to be little adults. So I'm going to have to learn how to, teach that. So kind of fell into that. But more so, I feel that it also then ended up being my own health, you know.
And is that kind of like what hooked you onto yoga? Is that kind of like, is that the time when like yoga really said, wow, I'm going to grab onto Nicole because
Yeah, I mean, yoga had definitely grabbed onto me before when I was working at ICE Model Management in the fashion industry, and it was super stressful. Our boss was amazing, and she always took us either to Pilates classes or yoga classes, and that really was kind of like my intro, and it really gave me an opportunity to just like switch off and, you know, come inside.
I'm going to interrupt you just for a split second there, because this is super interesting to me, because I find Pilates also interesting. But like often you'll find like people will either go Pilates or yoga. And what kind of made you follow yoga more than Pilates? And sometimes kind of like those paths intertwined again at some point, and we
Absolutely.
often do both.
Absolutely.
But kind of like, what
So
was it then that got you?
my own opinion, and it might push buttons for some people. So
Just
please bear in mind, it's my opinion, is that Pilates is for people that are definitely more on the exterior, on the conditioning of the body. Of course, you know, through the focus and all of that, it does bring you inside. Yoga definitely is more on the spiritual side. You know, yoga definitely gives you more of an opportunity to work with yourself from the inside out, where Pilates, just as it was designed to do, you know, it was designed to assist dancers to heal out of injuries, you know, so they made use of the yoga practice, changed a couple of the breath works. Instead of exhaling here, they're inhaling. So a lot of it is very much the same, but you definitely don't have that spiritual practice with it. There are definitely some Pilates teachers who mix it up a little bit, which I think is amazing. And even if they aren't, even if you are like a full-on strict Pilates teacher, I think that's amazing too, because you are serving a purpose for certain people. But for me personally, I did definitely move along the yoga side, because I just felt, you know, how much deeper it was kind of working on me. And yeah.
And I think we also always find, like, at different times in our lives, we crave or we need something different. Sometimes we actually just don't want to go into that depth work. We're just not interested. We literally just want to do something that's maybe going to support or strengthen our lower back or get out of this pain. And sometimes we actually really, and again, it depends on, I think, the teacher very often. Like,
Absolutely.
that will maybe just introduce you to concepts, ways of thinking, changing your beliefs about yourself a little, which was big for me as well. And sometimes we're craving that, or we're ready to hear that story.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've been practicing years of yoga. You've also gone into kind of like, I don't know what to call it, like alternate holistic health with regards to studying kinesiology and Reiki, and there's more in there as well.
Dawn and Bryce, yeah.
Dawn and Bryce. That's actually also where we used to practice on each other. I remember that. I love that. Yeah. You know what I actually do? I'm just going to, like, as an aside here, is because I'm out in farmland Mozambique. So I occasionally have people who, you know, oh, Nina, my back is sore. So I say, okay, come over to the farm. I'll throw them on the kitchen counter and do some manual physical adjustment. And I just laugh, because that was the original story about Dawn, where he was a wood chopper, wasn't he?
Yes,
and he helped people on the kitchen counter. It's like, so this is exactly what's happening. I don't have my treatment table here. People get thrown onto the kitchen counter.
It's hilarious. It's brilliant. Well done. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You did a lot of this work in Cape Town, and then you decided to not quite up and leave and move to Austria, but there was like a decision process that went into doing that. And literally, you pretty much have had to start over from scratch there, right?
Yeah, I must be honest, it was quite a frustrating feeling, I must be honest, to begin with, just because Austria is a country that is very, you know, very structured, and has its social system, how it works and how you need to fit into it, and which I'm super grateful for, you know, because at the end of the day, it gave me that time to really arrive here and to kind of experience it from a place of groundedness and safety. But during that time of kind of integrating and getting into the system, there's a lot of time for you to think, you know, so there's a lot of time for you to kind of like, what am I going to do? How am I going to approach, you know, me being able to teach here, and obviously they have all different rules and regulations.
Not as simple as just quickly putting a yoga class together and, you know, going to the community center and now teaching.
No, it actually is. The yoga part is.
You
Yeah,
can.
the yoga
Okay.
part definitely is. The rest of it, you have to kind of what's the English word? Du musst angemeldet sein.
You got to be like registered or signed up.
Exactly, thank you. You have to be registered, which of course then I went through the process of registering to do my holistic practices. But I think the frustrating part was that I had all this time to myself as I was kind of like getting into the system and kind of, you know, registering and doing all of that. Where in the past, I was always studying. I was always studying so that I could, you know, kind of be in my practice, offer my clients services. And here now there was this gap, you know. So here I'm coming into a new space with all the knowledge that I need, but I don't have the people. So that was really interesting. But also kind of giving you a little bit of a feeling like, okay, no, but I know what I'm doing. You know, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I want to offer, very clear on things. And then really, you know, just having that courage of actually just putting yourself out there and going to different studios. So where I stay, there was only really one yoga studio. Julia, who I'm actually very good friends with right now, but never really used her space because I think the times didn't match. So I ended up working at a fitness studio. I rented the space there. And yeah, so, you know, doing the whole thing of making flyers and handing out. And luckily I have family here, which supported me as well in the sense of, you know, spreading the word. So actually it was really a great experience, you know, and I always feel that yoga for me is a way into the body, a way into the body to be able to assist people with opening the body, with connecting to the body, bringing movement and breath in. And then from there, if there are imbalances, we can always dive deeper. You know, we can either dive deeper into a yoga one-on-one, or we can dive deeper into Dawn and Bryce method, which is the body alignment, I like to call it. And then, you know, or if it really is something that we really need to reprogram the nervous system with, then we move into kinesiology. And the Reiki for me is just, it's just such a beautiful, simple practice of connecting to that divine energy and assisting the body how it needs to be assisted. So you're not actually, not that I'm interfering with any of the other modalities, but the other modalities are definitely more kind of like pinpointed, you know, where the Reiki for me is an overall energy of love and acceptance. And it really, for me, just kind of like wraps the person in a beautiful, warm, cuddly blanket, you know, to make them feel like everything's going to be okay, you know, and then often use that to calm the nervous system down, to calm the person down if they are in a state of anxiety or stress or completely, you know, almost at burnout. And then from there, we start to move deeper. So it's nice to have all these little tools in my little toolbox. The nice thing also is that we're dealing with the whole body, you know. We're not going to a knee specialist for your sore knee because that's the only thing he does. You know, he only looks at the knee. And as we both know, often knee problems come from the hip, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it's very important to see the person as a whole.
Get the holistic view of
the imbalance.
Yeah. And I love like your story with regard to like how yoga, you know, started, like, you know, it was this like little bubble. And from there, it's just allowed you to expand and grow and draw on different things that speak to you, and allow your talents and your personality to come through, and your gifts to help and heal in a very like special and magical way as well. And I think kind of like also what I'm hearing is that, you know, when people work with you, it's like a whole holistic aspect. It's not like, you know, often, and we've done this before because we've done retreats, you know, you go on a retreat, you get healing, you get support, and then you get home and things fall to pieces because life just happens. And like with you, it's kind of like, you know, if you're coming to yoga or doing whatever it is you're doing, there's actually a structure to support them if they're needing more support. If they're not needing support at that point in time, they don't, you know, they don't need it. But if they are, there's, you know, the kinesiology, there's the more working with the body, the dawn and Royce, there's the Reiki, like you're saying, if they're just needing that like blanket of love and warmth around them, that is like going to nurture everything. And I think also kind of like with us, what we're doing is like we're trying to create that support for others too with the podcast that we do, because we've got our podcast Nourish and Restore, where every week we're sharing something that's working for us with the listeners. And I think that's such a beautiful gift that we're able to share and give to everyone, because we have such broad and vast knowledge and experience of kind of like we've been doing this work for a long time. So we've seen a lot that's come up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the journey kind of always evolves. You know, you start at some point and then you learn something new and it works for you. So, you know, you get so excited because you're like, oh my gosh, if this is working for me, you know, this will work for so many other people. And there is just so much pleasure and so much excitement in that service. You know, I just love being able to see how people move from the imbalance into like wholeness again, and you know, and how one can assist people to feel better and do better and be better and all of that. Which kind of has then also taken me to now teaching more, you know. So now I am teaching people more about their whole body. You know, a lot of us don't realize that we aren't just this physical person. You know, we have this whole energetic body, and everything around us is energy, and
that our head isn't separated from our heart. It's kind of like we actually are all one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that a lot of people are so dense in their physical body, and that's why the pain is sitting there, you know. So once we start learning about that, there's so much more about us, we can actually learn how to shift that ourselves, which is so empowering, you know.
And kind of like what I'm also hearing kind of like behind all of that is the sense that, like often when I speak to people, they would have said, oh, I've tried like a yoga class, or I've, you know, went to this and it didn't work for me. I didn't like it. And it's just like, no, it's not the practice you didn't like. It's not the Reiki you didn't like. It's not the yoga class you didn't like. It's maybe the facilitator, the person whose energy you just weren't resonating with at that point in time. It's not like they're a bad teacher or a bad person. It just isn't for you right now. And I think very often it's kind of like, okay, we need to find like it sounds so like blur, but like our tribe or our person or our people who we're resonating with right now, so that we can go to that next step. And I think like that's why you're so successful in kind of like what you're doing, because so many people resonate with the essence of you, which is like this warmth and this giving and this really nurturing and this deep desire to wanting to help people experience their kind of like authentic, vibrant self, like get rid of all that pain and that nonsense that isn't needing to be there, like all that energetic crap. And let's get to who you are. I mean, that's what I see with you and the work that you do. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it is really just that, you know, it is really just seeing the goodness in people and seeing their potential and everything that they could do, and then really moving into that with them, you know, because of course it's very important to know that everybody has their journey, you know, and as much as I can see things for them, it's not my place to heal that for them. So as a facilitator, all I'm doing is I'm assisting them with their own healing, you know.
And you know what I think is so important is like when we've got that person by our side, we can move through that process so much faster than if we're thinking we can just do it ourselves. Like we all know kind of like what we need to do, you know, that we should be doing our yoga in the morning, that we should be eating better, that we, you know, we should be grounding ourselves, you know, at the beginning of the day. But when we've actually got that support, like you're saying, like, you know, you're facilitating that, the results happen so much more quickly. And I think that's the thing.
Absolutely, because I feel that in a way you can let go. You know, you feel you're being held in a safe space, and it's an opportunity for you to unfold. You know, so that whatever needs to arise can arise, and we can move it out of the way, and then really get into what, you know, what's in front of you.
And often it is, I find, like, you know, at least with me, it's kind of like over the 20 years of teaching yoga, I've, you know, gone through this, I've done this, like I've done all the wrong things, the bad things. I've got the shortest route for you to, like, you know, get to success or to feel better. Like, don't do all the bad stuff, you know, taking the long route to where you can go. Like, you know, you've got, this is a quicker route, this is an easier route, this is a less stressful route. And kind of like when you get to that, you know, from A to B, then you're ready to like really jump to point C more quickly. So
absolutely. I mean, I think what we need to all bear in mind is that we are our own worst enemies, right? We are our own worst enemies, because even myself, before I was offering what I'm offering, I was going to somebody that was offering almost, you know, similar. And I would, you know, like a week before my session, I would like, oh no, I'm so good, you know, I don't need the session, I'm fine. And then I would cancel the session, and literally not even a week later, I'd be phoning and says, actually, you know what, do you have space for me? Yeah. Or sometimes I want to cancel and I'm like, okay, no, you know, it's too late for me to cancel now, and let me just go. And actually having gone was like, wow, I really just needed that session, you know. And I think that's what it is. It's allowing ourselves to be honest with ourselves. You know, are we happy with where we are, or do we want change? You know, whether that's on a physical, mental, emotional, energetic side. And then really saying, then I am going to do the work. I want to do the work, you know. And sometimes, yes, your head will say, oh, no, you don't need it, or you can do this on your own. That's the best, you know, you can do it on your own. Which you can, as you said, but it will be hard. It will be lonely. And it is always so much nicer to be able to share it with somebody, and especially somebody that you resonate with and that you can feel safe with, you know. So I do hope that I do offer that for my clients and my tribe, I like to call them. And you know, it also often is that whatever you went through as a person, you attract the people that are going through the same thing, you know. So you've kind of been there, you've experienced it, you've been able to heal or help yourself out of it, and now you have an opportunity to do the same for people that are going through similar scenarios.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. I actually couldn't say anything better. You've literally summed it up so beautifully. So if people are wanting to connect with you, if they're wanting to find out more about your work, we were chatting www.lov-me.com. Any other place they can go to find out what you're doing?
If they want to see the fun side, they can always check in on my Instagram page, which is a little bit wild. But yeah, otherwise just contact me by email, nicole@love-me.com. And yes, get in touch, even if it's just a chat. I'm happy to just have a chat to see if our energies align, if I'm able to offer you what it is that you're needing or wanting. And then we can always set up a program from there. I have some clients that are with me for a couple of months. Then I have some clients that are with me for years, especially now being overseas. and kind of working online with clients from home still. And then, of course, I am in Cape Town for a couple of months during the year as well, and kind of in Europe for the rest of the time. Yeah.
And, that's so true. It's like, I have it as well. You have it as well. These free sessions to connect, do our energies resonate? Do you feel like, you want to work with me? What is the story? And what I would suggest to listeners is really make use of those sessions, because one, even if they're not going to be working with us, you get so much clarity for yourself with regards to where you're going and where you want to go, with being able to tap in and answer the questions that we ask of you. And then again, we both know if it's a good fit, if you want to work with the person and if the person wants to work with you, because it has to be a mutually agreeable space. Because if it's not, then there's no point.
No, it doesn't.
But you got to take the action to book that session, because otherwise you'll never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that at the end of the day, if it resonates with you, it might not, it might not be something for you now, but then in a couple of months' time, you might think back to maybe even this interview, and you might think, oh, you know what, actually, I wasn't ready to work with Nina then, or with Nicole then, or whoever the person is, but maybe I'm ready for it now, so absolutely. Just take your time, but also know that the time is now. You can never be ready for anything.
And that is so true. That is so true. It's kind of like divine timing. Sometimes you just need you need to hear a conversation. You need to kind of be pushed a little in a direction, take action. Don't just sit back and be that old person. We're going into the new year. Who do you want to be in 2023? Are you a person who's taking action and actually going to take control of, their health, wellness, and kind of their well-being in the new year? Or are you just going to be the same person you were last year or this year?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. All right, my friend. I
thank you so much.
Love chatting with you. I love the podcast that we get to do together and connect with you. You are such a special soul. So thank you for doing this interview with me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you for the opportunity. Love you so much, and we'll chat very soon.
Take care.
Bye.